with this sort of veteran leadership in this music, and they were just like so amazing about it. I mean, we're talking about people who studied. My drum professor, Robert Jospe at UVA, like studied with Tony Williams, hung out and studied with Elvin Jones, like lived in New York back then and was hanging out with the Brecker brothers, with Chick Corea, And so they were like really happy when they were up there, and then they just decided, I don't want to live in New York. I want to live in Charlottesville. And that's what they did. And they basically established the music scene in Charlottesville. And so being able to have that while I was at UVA was so huge. I would have been very miserable at UVA if not for John and Joss and Pete Spar, Jeff Decker. I also worked for the university after I attended the university. Before I was going to go to Queens College, I decided after finishing my bachelor's, that I really wanted to be a musician. There I was with a biology degree and not really sure what I wanted to do with it. And I was lucky to get a job in the biology department with a great professor who's also a musician. And I worked there for 2 years, and I played a bunch of gigs in town in Charlottesville with folks. And I played one with Jeff Decker, Mike Rosinski, Randall Farr every Wednesday for, I calculated, 75% of the Wednesdays in the year 2012. And Jeff called a ton of different tunes, every single night or every single week. And it just, I learned so many songs, which was huge to go into school. And I was also, Randall plays so great. He has such a great quarter note. It was a great rhythm section to be a part of as well. So I just really can't emphasize enough, like, how important and how lucky I feel to have just met the people, who have been a lot older than me, who have really set me off on the right track, and then I went to Queens and was able to meet Antonio Hart, who's on Life in the Glass House, who's on Jupiter. Got to study arranging with Michael Philip Mossman, whose charts I had played in high school, and who's a great guy, great trumpet player, great arranger. Was able to study piano and harmony, drums with Dennis McCrell. Oh my gosh, I mean, to be able to study with the guy who was the drummer and the conductor in the Count Basie Orchestra. I mean, could I ask for more? That's it's so huge, and he was so incredible to me. And I mean, I owe him so much as a teacher. We would either just play straight, for the whole hour, just back and forth, or we would just talk basically for the whole hour. There was kind of no back and forth, but it was always what was needed. I owe a lot to him. So, and you, man, I mean, seriously, being able to meet you in New York, and, being able to talk to me about, the industry and, how to think about these different hats that I, need to wear and appreciate the different roles that each has. So, just meeting a lot of the right folks and, assembling the right, what I call sort of the Crab Shack music team, I suppose.
I think that's wonderful. And the thing that I find most important about what you're saying is you met the right people, but you also put in the work to be with the right people. Oftentimes people do meet the right people, but they don't put in the work. They don't know what to do. They don't feel, they're good enough or whatever it is. And so they don't take advantage of those opportunities. And it seems as though you took advantage of every opportunity you could to bring you to yourself this day. When you moved from Virginia up to New York City, did you see yourself staying in New York? What brought you back to Virginia?
Well, I wasn't really sure. The thing that was awesome when I was working for the university, living in Charlottesville, was I had a house where for the first time I had like a little studio, like a little drum room, where I had my kit set up, and it was basically like, get up, feed my dog, go to work, walk my dog, practice, eat, basically every day. I didn't really go out that much. A lot of my friends had moved away. So if I wasn't playing a gig, I was either hanging at somebody's gig or at the house practicing. And so that was just like, I think the thing I realized when I moved to New York, and suddenly, I have a practice space at school, which is cool. But then, there started to be, like more drummers in the program, and there were still but like 2, maybe 3 rooms. I'm not sure if I had committed to like really living in New York past when I went to school there. I just knew that I wanted to spend some time there. And I definitely wouldn't rule out returning at some point. But I think the thing that drove me back that I didn't have in New York was, the space, man. I couldn't have a studio in New York. I wouldn't have been able to make this record in New York because, I would have just been trying to make rent. I think that I didn't really have enough revenue in each of the little revenue streams to make it happen. You know, I was teaching tennis. I was had like a couple little ins on private lessons and potentially on like drum clinics. You know, little things, you know, not really enough to make it truly sustainable. So I think ultimately, you know, the money that I saved by moving back home for a little bit, you know, with my folks for maybe like, you know, 5 months, and then ultimately, because I found the right place, you know, I wasn't really in a hurry. It wasn't like I didn't have money. It was really just about finding a place that was suitable to what I had envisioned, which is, you know, really being able to have a studio and a place where I could rehearse and or, you know, record whenever I wanted, you know, and be able to practice, man. I mean, when I graduated Queens and suddenly it was that, you know, I was living in a 1-bedroom apartment with a roommate who was never there, and I'm living in the living room, and my drums, it's basically, you know, I hop off my drums and into my bed, right? And then I hop onto my computer with my little keyboard.
That's New York City living.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I have a backyard. I didn't have my dog with me up there, which was a huge factor in moving back. You know, he wasn't really into living up there. And I think that, you know, we're sort of similar in our way, and we like our space. You know, I had a backyard here. I've thrown concerts at this house. In the backyard, both like day-long, you know, multi-band festivals, you know, where I brought in like 130 people, as well as a concert that was just for Jack Kilby in the front line that was leading up to the recording session. It was sort of like our last rehearsal and run through the tunes before that session. And so I did that on my backyard, man, and I got to record it, you know, and so I couldn't do that kind of stuff in New York. And so I think just really being able to sort of establish my own lane, coming back here was important. You know, I'm from here, but it's different living here, you know, now as an adult, obviously, than it was when I was a kid.
Let's shift slightly and talk about the record. What should listeners expect from this record?
I think they should expect, like, hopefully a lot. I want to kind of tickle everybody's taste buds with the music on there. I hope that, you know, I guess the artist in me certainly hopes that they'll listen, you know, from start to finish, you know, sort of in order. There's like a rhyme or reason to the way I put things on there, for what it's worth. Let me brush that dust off my shoulder for myself real quick.
You know, people don't do albums anymore, Jack. They do singles, so come on now.
They don't. But no, I mean,
state of the music
industry. It really does. It does have a vibe. I mean, so I guess I'll say, for those that don't know, you know, the title of the record is Love is a Song Anyone Can Sing. The record is named after a song that was written after my dear friend and tenor saxophonist Charles Owens, who approached me and said, "Hey, I've got this tune for the front line, I think." And me, you know, trying to put music together for the record, I'm like, great. That's awesome, dude. So it's one less thing I have to do. And I loved the tune when he sent it to me. And there's this thing about the melody. It's got this sort of, you know, walking down the street-ness quality, you know, and that you could sort of hum it when you walk down the street. But it swings, man. It's cool. I mean, it's great. You know, I think it's energetic. It's fun. You know, it's definitely not like, if you were to say jazz to people, you know, it's not like the sort of boring, you know, grandparent type jazz that I think people would imagine. And so what I did with the melody to that song is I did a bunch of different iterations of that melody where I had, you know, individuals play the melody however they wanted. And then I had certain small groups where I put it in different like genres, you know, so I have a ballad version, I have a reggae version. I have a sort of fiddly folk version. And then there's, you know, a solo guitarist plays one. You know, my buddy plays pedal steel on volume 2. There's a couple of, my bass player plays piano because he's a killing piano player. Chris Monson, I mean, he plays this awesome thing that he arranged. You know, it's funny how I just let people interpret it however they want, man. I mean, that's sort of my idea, is that it's like love. You know, they took this common theme of the melody, right? That was their only instruction, play the melody. They could play it however they want, with different harmony, you know, rubato in different time, you know, slow or fast, didn't care. I just wanted to record it. And I think that, to me, is a great, like, tonal illustration of love. And that if I were to ask you what love is, you'd be like, sure, I know what it is. You know, if I were to ask anybody, they would know. But yet it has, like, a different meaning or sort of significance to each of us in how you give it and how you want to receive it, you know, and how you share it with your friends, your family, your, you know, significant other, et cetera, et cetera. And so to me, it was kind of cool in how different and awesome all these different versions of the same melody could be. You know, just the variety of the sound was just so cool. And also, I could get really deep on it. I mean, the moods of love that sort of exist. Sometimes love can be kind of angsty or sort of, dramatic. Sometimes it can be, maybe have a lustful element to it. Sometimes it can be just very romantic and sweet. Sometimes it can be tranquil. It can be sort of like an out-of-body experience when you have like a crush on someone, or you're totally smitten. So I sort of hear them that way too. And that's one of my favorite parts of the record. There's an interlude in between every song. So there's this one little version of the melody in between every single song. Micah Robinson does an amazing job introducing it. He and I have sort of an inside joke that inspired the way that he introduces and concludes the record. And even A Bridge Between, which is the last track on Volume 1, is the only one that is the bridge section. If we're talking about the structure of Love is a Song Anyone Can Sing, which is AABA, it's the only version that utilizes the bridge melody. And that actually came together on the day before my last mixing session with Dave Darlington. I'm just so lucky that I was able to get the idea together and the people together to record it, before I did that, because it turned out great. It's maybe one of my favorite things about the whole album. So, as well as, the band stuff is obviously killing. I think people will really like it, and the way it evolves. It really starts with sort of rooted in the tradition of hard bop and whatnot, and it sort of evolves. We got an odd meter in there that's a little more contemporary. We got a Herbie tune. We got Radiohead. We've got the John Durst original, where we all sing. Solomon Howard sings with us. So there's a lot of great things happening. I'm really proud of it. And then on Volume 2, that's where we've got, Antonio Hart as a guest, Mark Meadows as a guest. Christy DeShiel just sings so beautifully on Colors of the Wind and on Pure Imagination, on a sort of a remix of my arrangement of Pure Imagination that came out just super great. So I'm just I couldn't be happier with how it turned out. It's been a long process, but I'm really, really pleased. So I hope people will, just take a second to listen. It's meant to sort of be that little gift to yourself. Like, if you listen to it, I think you will feel good afterwards. Just like if you go to yoga, you make that sort of commitment to spend that hour to go and sort of relieve yourself. Maybe do that. Go do some flows and listen to the record, or do whatever you need to do.
So as you're describing this record, I'm hearing love, I'm hearing family, I'm hearing collaboration and community. I'm getting all of these colors, if you will, right? From the words you're saying. How important was that collaborative process in developing the sound and shaping the record itself? Or did you have a clear vision before you went into this process? How did that work for you?
Oh, man. Well, so this would be a great time to mention my dear friend, Carol DeShiel III. We call him CV. I met him through my high school director, Von Ambrose, when he was like 18, and I must have been maybe 15. I think there's only 3 years between us, though it seems like there are many, many more. He's been, his father is an incredible musician, and his whole family is musicians. Christy sings, Christy DeShiel is the vocalist, and that was sort of how that came to be. But TV had texted me sort of randomly. I think I was walking out of teaching some private lessons too, and he texted me and he was like, "Man, when you get to working on your record, let me know. I would love to help produce it." And I was like, wow, I hadn't even really thought about making a record. I had a couple arrangements. I'd done a recital, for my masters, and so I had some tunes. I had an idea of the formation of the band. But that text and CV is what really got me thinking about making a record, and have something that had a cohesive, sound and message to it. And so I owe a lot to him to just planting the seed, or at least giving me the kick in the butt to really get going on it. It's not like I'm not capable. I think we all just need a little nudge sometimes. I had just moved back from New York, was kind of trying to, figure out what I did want to do. So I'm so glad that he did suggest that. I did have a lot of ideas about how I wanted, songs to go, at least because I didn't want it to just be chorus after chorus of soloing, right? I sort of knew who I wanted to have solo on what and how the tunes went. But he made some really awesome contributions in not only helping me get my drums tuned, because my 14-inch floor tom was giving me some trouble during the recording session. So there's a hilarious video where he comes out so gently, because I'm sensitive, like ladies,